Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I'm going to prepare a video on content which is called predefined class. Predefined class is actually referring to Java classes or library provided by Java that you can simply use by importing the libraries. I guess you've been using it before. Like when you do the code on the upper part, normally you add keyword like import on top. Okay, so it's actually referring to that. Okay, so what will be covered here, we'll explore how to create and use object from predefined class in a program. Okay, how to use existing library provided by Java, such as from string, random, wrapper, scanner, maps. Okay, so there are many more, but that's the one that will be covered in this course. So this is actually the predefined class is actually a library provided by Java. Okay, when you download JDK, it comes together with this library that you can simply use it. Okay, all right. So basically, all these are actually it come in packages, right? It's like a normal. There are in one package there are many classes, and each of these class will have its own methods, just like the one that you will do and have done before, right? So right, as mentioned just now, all these classes are grouped together in packages. Okay, I think among the common one that you'll be using is java.lang. Okay, this is the library that you can use without importing it. It exists in all classes that you create. Java EWT, I think you'll be using this later on when you create the GUI, graphical user interface. Java Swing, Java Util is the one that you use for scanner when you want to receive input from the keyboard. Right, so if you want to use the predefined class or the Java library, you have to put the word import in front and then followed by the library, the packages that you want to use. Okay, I think this is common to you, Java Util Scanner. Okay, and sometimes you don't have to put the actual class name. Okay, you can simply put a wildcard character. Okay, java.lang is the one is actually automatically imported to you in all the programs, so you don't have to specify this, right? You can simply use it without specifying. But if you want to use java.util, you have to provide that in your code, okay, by putting code like import java.util. Okay, let's say if you have many classes and you want to create packages, you want to group them in a package, so you can actually create your own package, but you normally have to start it with a lowercase name. Okay, you don't want to have conflict with the classes name because classes will have capital letter name, right? Okay, put a package statement with that name at the top of the source code. Normally, if you are using a more comprehensive Java IDE, it is the word package is automatically set for you. Right. So among the predefined Java class that you'll be using it again in this course is string. Okay, it's basically a class. So it has attribute. Okay, this class name is string. Okay, the one that you've been using before is actually a predefined class. It's actually from a class. So it has its own class where it has the attributes, and all these are actually its methods. We'll be using lots of the methods in this course. Okay, so how do you create a string object? Okay, so this is how you do it. Okay, name. Okay, so you have to specify the name of the string as a class, okay, followed by uh, the name of the variable, okay, and then the word new because you are creating an object, and then followed by string again. Okay, the class name is here, and then this one is basically giving initial value to the object string that you create. Okay, or sometimes you can simply write it like this. Okay, you don't have to put the word new string there. So you can either write it in the first way or the second way, but I would recommend that you use the first one. Okay, because this is an object, when you create the object string name, okay, and then the second line name equal to new string. So the variable name here is actually having the address of the object that you have created, which is a string type. And Alicia is the value inside it, and the count is 6 because Alicia is length is 6, and then it comes together with the method. Okay, all right, let's have a look here. Okay, at the first line there is string name equal to new string. So what happened is there is a variable name 4, okay, which is having an address of the object string, and this one does not have any value because you do not put value here. Okay, so the count is 0 and it comes together with the method. Then the second line says string name 5 equal to new string Socrates. So what happened is there is a variable called name 5 having an address of the location of a new object string with the value of Socrates, and the count is 8. Okay, 8 character there, and then it comes with a method, but it does not show here. And then the third line says string name 6, okay, equal to name 4. So what happened is, so it is having an address, or its reference, it is referencing the same object that name 4 is referencing. Okay, so this 3 line of code, this is how you can visualize it in the what happened in the computer. Okay, I believe we have covered this a bit in the previous lecture. So there is the concept of primitive data and object data type. Okay, integer x is actually primitive. Okay, string is from an object, so it's a object type. Okay, if you have x equal to 45, what will be happen? The value of 45 will be stored in x. And when you have string, which is from object string, equal to Java programming, so str is actually storing the reference address. Reference here is the address in the memory of the object. Right? So this is how you can imagine what happened. So this is a primitive data type integer. So the data is actually stored here, whereby if the variable is of type data type, so in here it's not storing the value, but it's storing the address of the object that has been created. In our case, this is a string object, and the location is 2500 in the memory. Okay, so that's how you could imagine what happened. Okay, object and reference variable. So what happened here? Okay, you create a string uh, str of the type string, and then you give initial value to it. What happened is str is not having the word hello there here, but it's actually only having the address of the object created. The object is somewhere else, okay, and here it's only storing the address. Okay, so normally the way that you will draw it for your study or maybe in your quizzes or exams like this, okay, because you don't really know what is the address, right? So the way that you draw to represent the object references is like this. You have an arrow pointing to the object. Okay, that's how you should be drawing it if the question is asking you to draw this kind of diagram. Okay, so all right, so let's have a look here. So the first one is a string, is an object, and a new object has been created with the reference of variable stud1. Okay, then in the second line is actually an integer, a primitive type. The variable name is student ID equals 65,000. So what does variable stud1 contains? Yes, mentioned just now, stud1 is type is an object. So stud1 is actually contain the address of the string object that just been created here. Okay, what does variable stud ID contain? This is a primitive type. So in stud ID, the value is 65,000, right? How about this one? Okay, there is a string with variable name stud1. Okay, it's been created. Okay, right now it does not have any value yet. It's only just created. And the second line shows stud1 equal to new string. So if I can draw it, it's like stud1. On the first line, it's pointing to null. Okay, it's not doing anything yet. Okay, then the second line, stud1 equal to an object. Okay, this object is a string. Sorry for the bad drawing. And then the value name is ani. So what happened here on the second line is no longer pointing to null. It's pointing to the new object. And then on the third line, a new object is created. Okay, it's a type string. Okay, type string, and the value is ob. And it comes together with method. Okay. So what happened on the third line? You say stud1 equal to new string ob. So what will happen is stud1 will no longer pointing here. It will pointing here. Okay, so how many objects were created by the three statement above? So how many objects? We have created 2. Okay, how many reference variable are there? They have 1. Okay, so if you try to get this object, it's no longer there. You cannot access it anymore, right? Okay, the same goes here. It's just that this is string 1, string A, which of type string. Okay, if I can draw it, it's like this, string A pointing to null. Nothing there yet. It's only creating the variable. And then string 2, this is the second line, string B equal to null. No objects been created yet. And then the third line says string A equal to new string. So what will happen here, there is a new object created. The type is string. And then there is the initial value is the dot. Okay, and A no longer pointing to null, is right now pointing here. Okay, and then we have line 4. Okay, string B equal to new string, the dot. So what happened is a new object is created. The type is string. Okay. And then the value is the dot. Right? And here it says string B equal to this new object. So no longer pointing to, now it's pointing to the another object. Then there is a method called if string A equal string B. So it's right now this if statement is asking whether these two objects are they the same. Okay, so this if statement return either true or false. What do you think? Is it true or false? Okay, it's actually true, right? So it will print. This will print. Okay, so this will be sorry. So this will be printed. Okay, so if you create an object called n1, a variable called n1. Okay, the type is string. So string here and string here. There's a word new. Don't forget. And then whatever here is actually the initial value that you want to give. So the way that you can imagine what will happen in the memory is that n1 is created and its point here is actually having an address. So the way that you draw it, you have an arrow pointing to an object. Okay, this object name is n1 and the type is string and there is a value ali here. Okay, let's say you write something like this, new string abu. So what will happen? An object abu of type string is created, but you cannot access it. Okay, because you do not assign any variable to access it. So it's there, but you cannot access it. We don't want that to happen, right? So right now what we are doing is we are looking at string class. So because this is a class, it has many methods. Okay, I think you have seen earlier. So among the common method that we have, you have a constructor. Okay, so when you create new string, that is actually you are calling the constructor, and then you have char add. Char add basically allow you to look for what are the character at the location 3. Okay, because this is a string, the index start with 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this variable method will return a char. Okay, whatever char at, for example, char at 3. So whatever string that you are checking at index 3, what is the character that exists? Okay, and then we have index of. Index of is we want to know what is the index for that character. For example, we have sentence is Johor, for example, and you say sentence dot index of J. So it will return 0 because for Johor, Johor, um, okay, sentence refers to Johor, index of J, so it's actually at the index 0, right? This is at the first location, but because this is a string, it begins with index 0, right? So this method return the location of where the character exists in the sentence. Let's say there are many word J in this variable, in this string, it will only identify the first one. And then you can use substring. Okay, substring basically will only, let's say you have the word Malaysia. Okay, you only want to take the anything that comes from index 0 and 4, for example. So it will return Malaysia. So if you want to index 0 to 3, 0 to 2, so it will only count 0, 1, 2. So it will only return you this string. Okay, to lowercase will convert whatever text that is whatever string that is provided to lowercase, and the same goes here. It will convert whatever string that you are having into uppercase. Right, so this is an example on how you can make use of this. So this is basically a class to manipulate string. So you have a class here, string example class is a public class. So it's open here, closing here. And then you have public static void main. And here it gives you several variables that represent string. Word 1 is having value how, word 2 are, word 3 you, and word 4 is basically combining all sentences. Okay, if this is a string, you put plus sign, it's basically will combine, put everything together will combine everything. Okay, so here you are basically trying to make use of the method that you just see just now. So system.out.println uppercase plus word 1 to uppercase. Word 1 is how, so it's actually giving you this output. Uppercase equal to how, so you will convert to uppercase. The second line, this is print line, so the next output is actually on the second line. And then you have word 4 plus question mark. So word 4 is this one, right? So it's combining word 1, word 2, word 3. So what will happen, it will be like this. How are you? No space in between and then question mark. Why? Because you have this. And then the second line, it will print the following code will say length plus word 4 dot length. So length plus 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, without the question mark. Okay. And then substring, I mentioned to you, it will chunk the string. Substring word 4 is still based on word 4. It take substring 3 to 9. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So it will take R until U. Okay. And then char add is looking it will return the location. It will check what is the character at 1. So character at 1 is character. Oh, so sorry. This is from word 2. Okay, word 2 is R, right? So character at location 1 is 0, 1. So it will be written R to you. Index of is actually going to look where does U exist in word 3. Word 3 is U. Okay, so the location of U is 0, 1, 2. So that's why 2 is there. Alright, so that's on string class. Okay, now we are looking at random class. Random class is from java.util. So basically this is a class that will generate to you random number. Okay, normally you use this for doing any calculation, or for example if you are trying to get any random number for doing calculation or generating number for certain purposes, can use this. So it comes in many form, not only for integer but also for double, float. Okay, this is for integer, and then you can actually set the range. For example, next integer n, if you want number from 0 to 100, so you put 100 here. And it can also support a long number. Okay. So if you want to use random class, you have to import java.ut.random on top, and then you create an object of random. Okay, whatever name that you want to use, new random. Then you use random here. You use random number and call it again here random number dot next integer. So if you run it, it generates to you any random number. Okay, if you run it for several times, it will give you different one. Okay, this is another example. It's like the difference is only this part here where you set the range of the number that you want this random class generate for you. For example, you put my random dot next in 10. So it will generate to you any integer number from 0 to 10. So if you run it several times, maybe you get different number, but between 0 to 10. Okay, this is an example to create a random number between 0 and less than 10, and you want it to run 20 times. Okay, so you have a class, public Java class, and then you have public void static main to run it, and then you set it 20. Why? Because you want to have 20 different numbers, random numbers, and then okay, you put import Java util here because you are using the random class. Then you have for loop that will control that will loop 20 times. Okay, and then use random. It must be the same, right? If it's small letter, same spelling. Dot next in 100. So it will generate to you any number from 0 to 100, and it will be looping for 20 times, and you want to print it. So what will happen? It will print 20 numbers from 0 to 100 in terms of the range of number. So if you run several times, because this is a random number, it will give you different combination of numbers. Okay. Okay, there is another class which is called wrapper class. Because what happened, sometimes when you do your coding, sometimes you use primitive data type, sometimes you use data from the type of object, so it will not be from the same type. Okay, so what will happen? You need a wrapper class to help you to convert the primitive type to an object type. And the wrapper class is part of java.lang, so you don't have to input it. It is actually there for you. Wrapper class wraps the value of primitive data type into an object. So let's say you are using integer. So this wrapper class will convert it into here, for example, this is in, right? This object class here is actually maybe you can convert it to an integer. This one is spelled slightly different. So this is actually integer, but in the form of objects. So this integer object comes together with methods suitable for integer value. Okay, right? For example, you are dealing with double, but maybe in the programming that you are doing, you need to convert it to a double object. So there is actually double object provided in Java. The same goes to float, but you can see that it's spelled with capital letter, right? Because it's in a form of class. Okay, even though, so maybe you'll be saying, why there are two? It's actually the same thing. This one is different. This is only storing data. This one, not only storing data, but it comes with methods that you can use on each of these value. Okay, it's like, for example, integer class, you can have a method that will convert the integer into string, for example. You can do many other things. Okay, so when you see double, but double is in a capital letter, it's not actually referring to the primitive data value where it only stores the data, but it's actually referring to a class representing double value that has many methods suitable for that method. Okay, so this is among the one that you normally use. For example, here you have a method called parse in. Let's say you receive input. I think you use this in your programming one, whereby normally when you receive input from the keyboard, when you type something from the keyboard, it's actually in the form of string. Okay, but you want to make sure to change the form so that it is an integer so that you can do math operation on it, right? Value of is actually uh, in this type it says it's to return the integer value. See, this is integer object. Okay, so it returns string as a integer object, meaning that maybe when you key in the data, it's actually a number, but when you key in from the keyboard, it's actually in the form of string. But this is slightly different. It's you want to change the value from string to integer object. So this is the method that you can use. All right, and the same goes here.